Well, the United States is set to begin evacuations of Afghan interpreters who assisted US-led forces during the conflict and are deemed to be at risk.
We can talk now to Colonel Richard Kemp, a retired British Army officer, about this. Richard, welcome to the show. Were we right to pull out of Afghanistan?
Thank you. No, not in my opinion. I think it's to pull out on an unconditional basis without taking any account of what's happening in the country in security terms, political terms, etc., has got to be wrong. It's only going to lead, I think, I'm very reluctant to say this, but I think it's very likely to lead to what will amount to some kind of a bloodbath. It's already going on, but it will only increase. And the Taliban, I think, have every likelihood of taking over the country as they were in control of it before 9/11.
Richard, was it inevitable when the Americans announced that they were pulling out that we would have to as well?
Yeah, I think so. There's no doubt we couldn't have stayed there at all, and no other European country could have stayed in Afghanistan after the US decided to withdraw. It has to be an alliance effort. The US could have stayed on their own, but they're much more powerful, of course, than we are. So we didn't have any option. And actually, it was the first time that, in my experience, that a senior government official, in this case the Chief of the Defence Staff, openly and publicly criticised the US decision to withdraw when Biden did it. And this was General Nick Carter, the Chief of the Defence Staff, who, I've never seen anything like that before, which must show the depth of his concern.
Now, we heard today that the Taliban have said in exchange for a 3-month ceasefire, they want the release of 7,000 captured fighters. Is there a risk that these captured fighters some of them might try and make their way over to Europe?
That is obviously an issue for the Afghan government to decide now. They're fully in charge of the country. So they will have to decide that. But I think, yes, there is every possibility that will happen, that some of them will come back if they indeed came from here. If they didn't, will come to Europe. And of course, the other problem for us, and it's a much bigger problem, of course, for the people in Afghanistan, who I feel deeply sorry for what's likely to happen to them. But we will see jihadists also flowing in the other direction. They will see this as a victory. They will see this as an opportunity to leave all countries around the world, head to Afghanistan to train, to meet people, to prepare operations, and then to carry out terrorist attacks overseas, including here in the UK. I think that is a tragic inevitability.
So not only a failed mission, a mission that has cost more than 450 British lives, but a mission that may well have made things worse than they were before.
Well, I wouldn't describe it as a failed mission. I would say that the mission itself was successful, with major problems, of course, massive problems. But nevertheless, I think the mission in Afghanistan of NATO forces was to prevent Afghanistan being used to launch another 9/11 style attack, as we saw in 2001. And that mission succeeded over 20 years. We saw nothing of that sort. And there were many opportunities for them to do that, but they were stopped by NATO forces from doing so. So the mission itself, I don't think, was a failure. But withdrawing now is, I would say, a betrayal, and in many ways a surrender. Not a surrender having been defeated, but a surrender because of a lack of political will to continue with this mission.
We've heard as well that China is making quite significant inroads into Afghanistan. Does that also trouble you?
Deeply troubles me. China's like a vulture circling Afghanistan, what they hope will become the carcass of Afghanistan, and attempting to gain influence there and power to exploit mineral wealth. And one other thing that's also very troubling, they've had a long-term relationship with the Taliban, the Chinese government, and they've used that relationship for a number of things, but predominantly to kill Uighurs who have escaped China into Afghanistan. And they've used the Taliban to gain intelligence on their movements and actually to kill them, which has been happening for quite a long time now. But it's not just China, of course. It's also Iran, it's Pakistan, and it's Russia circling the body of Afghanistan to both gain benefit and influence, and also to use it as an opportunity to get back at the Americans. So it is a major strategic blow, I think, what we've decided to do now. And it's not just in Afghanistan, it's also, I think, a blow to the credibility of the US, because President Biden said he was going to evacuate forces from Afghanistan in order to focus more on the threat from China and Russia. But actually, when America is trying, and Britain for that matter, is trying to persuade countries who are either undecided or maybe erring towards the Chinese bloc, towards Russia, authoritarian countries, to persuade them to come into the Western sphere of influence, they'll look around and they'll say, well, this is how America treats its allies and its friends. They leave them when they're in dire trouble. So why would we do so? And I think, therefore, it's a big blow to American authority.
President Biden's argument was that they're not into nation building. At some point, they were leaving Afghanistan in a position to fend for itself.
Yeah, I don't think it's about nation building. It's we've spent years. When I first went out there in 2003, one of my tasks with British forces in Afghanistan was to train the Afghan National Security Forces, and we've been doing that increasingly since that time, and it has had success. But nevertheless, the problem, there are many problems with Afghanistan, with the security forces of that country defending itself. One of which is that the government is immensely corrupt. They often don't get paid by their own government, the Afghan security forces. We've seen them surrendering en masse and sometimes getting massacred by the Taliban, who they surrender to, because they have nothing to fight for. They're not cowards, these people. They're often very brave and capable fighters, but they have nothing to fight for. They have nothing to give their lives for. They don't particularly owe allegiance to the Afghan government, which is so corrupt. So I think that more effort, I think, should have been concentrated on trying to reform the Afghan government, and also on pressurizing Pakistan, which has been the main sponsor of the Taliban, and has been effectively responsible for the Taliban conducting such a powerful campaign up to now. And it's those areas that we should have been focusing on much more than I think we did.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.